The Pats might get Travis Hunter, so who's a realistic choice for their next pick at left tackle? We'll examine here on PatsCast.
No tackle at four, now what's the plan? Gotta find someone who can take a stand.
Welcome to PatsCast. I'm Brad Whitaker. Good to be with you. Gonna get to all of the exhilarating tackle talk in just a moment, but first, some Patriots news emerging. Tony Pauline is reporting that the NFL Combine arm measurements were coming in up to a half-inch short. So, Aussie Trapilo, Boston College, left tackle, right tackle, we'll talk about him in just a moment. He was said to be at 33.5-inch arms. He was measured in at 33-inch arms at the Combine. So you know what that means for Will Campbell. Does that increase his draft stock? Will Campbell, many believe he's the best left tackle in this draft, will probably be the first true left tackle off the board. Fundamentally sound player, but his arms are short. And we heard from Greg Bedard a little over a month ago that Will Campbell has 32-inch and 7/8 of an inch arms. He was measured at about 32.5 inches at the Combine. So maybe he is closer to 33. Maybe he is actually at 33. I wonder if that changes the Patriots calculation a little bit, considering if, Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter aren't available at 4th overall. Are you willing to take a chance on Campbell if some of these measurements are off? But let's get to the exciting stuff, tackle talk. It sounds like the Patriots do plan to draft the best player available, at least according to Elliott Wolf. He said, quote, "We're just really excited to be able to go into the draft, not forced to pick something. The best player available is going to be the way it is. Maybe we went for need a little bit too much last year. Obviously, that culminated in us drafting Drake May, so it wasn't all bad. But just moving forward, it's taking the best player and understanding that we've filled a lot of needs already in free agency." So, first of all, I don't believe Elliott Wolf when he talks about this because, yeah, they filled a lot of needs on defense. They did fill the right tackle spot, but we all know the two glaring holes. It's the number one wide receiver spot and the left tackle position, which Patriots really struck out on in trying to shift Caden Wallace over from the right to left side last year. No idea if that's what they're still trying to do, but they do have needs. They haven't addressed all those needs as of this recording, March 25th. Maybe that will change. Maybe they'll bring in Tyron Smith. Maybe they'll bring in a true number one wide receiver, but I think he's prepping us for their first pick, the 4th overall pick, that if you're drafting Abdul Carter, very good edge rusher, the best defensive player, at least the consensus is he's the best defensive player in the draft, you're not really drafting for need there, right? Like the Patriots, yeah, they could use a really good edge rusher. You could say that's like a minor need, but with all that they added in free agency, edge rusher is not like a top 5 priority right now. So I think that's what Elliott Wolf is preparing us for, that, Travis Hunter's off the board, the two quarterbacks are off the board, and then you got to draft a defensive player because you're going to take the blue chip guy who is a tier above all the remaining players in the draft at their respective positions other than maybe Ashton Genty. So I think he's preparing us for that, but in reality, unless Tyron Smith and Brandon Ayuk are walking through that door, they will be addressing those two glaring holes, left tackle and wide receiver, in the first 3 rounds of this draft. I truly believe that. So let's say the Patriots do land Travis Hunter, right? They're going to have to draft for need. So they're going to need to take a tackle probably as soon as the 2nd round. They have 2 third-round picks, so they could potentially package some of those picks, trade back into the mid to late 1st round, and get a really good left tackle that way. We're going to go through all these scenarios in just a moment, but, let's say Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are both off the board, and the Patriots take Mason Graham because he's the best player available. Well, then you're absolutely going to have to draft a left tackle and a wide receiver in the 2nd and 3rd rounds, or if you get Abdul Carter, you're going to have to do the same thing. So let's go through some of those scenarios. I am going to skip a couple of players. Number 1, Will Campbell, who we kind of did just talk about. He's likely going in the top 10 to 15. I'm talking about what the Patriots are going to do with their 2nd pick in this draft, whether they're sticking early in the second round, whether they trade back into the first round. That's what I'm talking about. So I'm taking Will Campbell off the board here. He's not going to be available. I'm also going to take Armin Membu off the board as well. He is considered probably the most talented or the best tackle overall in the draft. He is a right tackle. Could move to left in the NFL. So those are the two guys I'm taking out of here because I think they're both going in the top 10 to top 15, and the Patriots probably going to select it fourth overall or trade back and maybe take one of those guys. I'm talking about their next pick. Early second round, or if they trade back into the first round. We'll also talk a little bit about some options that they could consider also in the third or the fourth round. So everybody else is in play at the left tackle position. And that starts with Kelvin Banks Jr., the left tackle from the University of Texas. I curated a lot of information for today's podcast. 24/7, The Athletic, strengths and weaknesses coming mainly from Draft Buzz. A lot of information, a lot of different stats I pulled externally. So trying to give you the lay of the land from all sorts of mock drafts, all sorts of college scouting websites, and just my opinion on top of that. So Kelvin Banks, we're going to start with him. Left tackle, University of Texas. 6'5", okay height, 315 pounds, so a little undersized in terms of weight. Arms are 33.5 inches, so he's above the threshold there. What are his weaknesses? We're going to start with the weaknesses before we get to the good stuff. Slightly short for an ideal left NFL tackle. 6'4", 6'5", roughly. Not as big of an issue, but it could be. Recovery foot speed, lags against elite edges, occasional waist bending, inconsistent run blocking, hand placement. So those are his weaknesses. That's not a terrible list, right? Like, the waist bending is something that a lot of college players have difficulty with, and they kind of polish that when they get to the NFL. It's just an occasional problem for him. I don't know why people aren't talking about Kelvin Banks enough. He's kind of the tackle that, like 3 months ago, people had Kelvin Banks ahead of Will Campbell, and then Will Campbell magically leapfrogged him, even though the arms narrative was happening. And he's just been kind of written off. I read a mock draft that had Kelvin Banks falling to the second round. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. He's a first-round projection. I think he could be top 5 to 10. And what are his strengths? Elite pass protection. Draft Buzz gives him 100% foot rating. Quick footwork. Masterful combo blocker. Exceptional awareness. Sophisticated hand techniques. Fluid pulling ability. Leverages angles well. Processes stunts rapidly. Has a pretty good football IQ from what I'm reading there. And obviously a great fit, an outstanding fit at left tackle for the Patriots. Technical prowess, pass blocking dominance, helped bring Texas Longhorns to a college football playoff run. Perfect plug and play left tackle, ready to go week one. Slightly shorter arms, but 33 is the threshold, and he's well enough above that. So I don't think that's an issue in the same way it probably will be for Will Campbell. And great stats. 0 sacks last year, 4 pressures, 1 sack allowed the year before as a sophomore. He was first team All-American this year, first team All-Big 12 the year before. He could slip, and I don't know why. I don't know why people aren't talking about Kelvin Banks enough. Maybe he's a little undersized, but fits the bill for a starting NFL left tackle and a starter right away on week one. You know, obviously, if the Patriots take Travis Hunter, the only chance they'd have at Kelvin Banks is trading back late in the first round. At least in my opinion, I still think he's going to go in the first round. But hey, if he falls to the second round, you got to take him. I mean, he might, when all said and done, he may be the best tackle in this draft. So, you know, I in my opinion, he isn't the best tackle in this draft, but he is the most underrated at this point. So I think Kelvin Banks is a guy to keep an eye on, and I'd put him atop this list. Next up, we have Josh Simmons. So he is the offensive tackle for Ohio State University. Similar size to Kelvin Banks, 6'5", 317 pounds, has 33-inch arms. So I haven't heard a lot of conversation about Josh Simmons and his short arms, which are shorter than Kelvin Banks and a little bit longer than Will Campbell. But a lot of people consider Simmons the most talented left tackle. I think Armin Membu might be the most talented overall tackle, but Simmons may be the most talented left tackle. But the biggest weakness, right, is how's his durability going to hold up? He had a knee injury in October, was gone for the rest of the season, kind of clouds his durability a little bit. Also had some hand placement issues, very penalty prone, racked up 25 penalties over the last 2 years. So that would fit very well with what we see in New England with Vidarian Lowe and company, but that's not great. Over-aggressive in space, and of course, doesn't have a ton of tape from 2024. But there's a reason he's considered the most talented left tackle. Exceptional lateral mobility, powerful punch, elite kick slide, combo block awareness, explosive first step, strong anchor, versatile across tackle spots. So he was actually a right tackle at San Diego State University the first 2 years of his career. The first year he was redshirted, so really just for 1 year before he transferred to Ohio State. Did excellent in both roles. Gave up 2 sacks as a sophomore at San Diego State, and then allowed just 1 sack in 2023 as the left tackle for Ohio State, third team All Big Ten, and then limited time, just 6 starts, 305 snaps, but allowed 0 sacks and just 2 pressures this past year with Ohio State. So many think Josh Simmons would be a top 5 draft pick and the first tackle taken off the board if he didn't have the knee injury. So like I said, that clouds the concern a little bit, but he's probably projected to be a late first rounder to an early second rounder. Could be a late first rounder or a mid first rounder if someone assesses him that way. Seen a lot of mock drafts lately that have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting him at 31st overall. They have a glaring need as well at the left tackle spot. So I think if the Patriots really want Josh Simmons, they're probably going to have to package their second round pick and one of their third round picks and trade back and leapfrog the Kansas City Chiefs and take Josh Simmons that way. I think it's the only way to do it. So, these teams at the end of the first round, a lot of those teams need tackles, and these are good NFL teams, Super Bowl contenders. You may have to leapfrog some of them, and the Elliott Wolf tried to do that last year, and it ultimately didn't work, and a ton of tackles were taken off the board for the Patriots. Could make that leapfrog because there just weren't enough potential trade partners. Hopefully they can pull it off this year with the help of Stretch and Mike Vrabel and company, and Matt Groh, I guess, is still running around there somewhere. Next up on this list, I think it's a bit of a drop-off at this point from Kelvin Banks Jr. and Josh Simmons, but still very good players. Wyatt Milm, he is the offensive left tackle, University of West Virginia, a little bit taller, 6'6", about the same size in terms of weight, actually a little less than the last 2 tackles I just mentioned, 313 pounds, short arms, just above 32-inch arms. Again, the threshold that many consider an NFL left tackle is 33-inch arms. So biggest red flag there, biggest weakness, biggest concern is, of course, his arm length. He's very stiff because of it in terms of inside counters, often leans forward in the run game, limited pulling experience, and he has a top-heavy frame, so there's some balance issues there for Wyatt Milm. But there's a reason this guy is considered. I've seen him in first-round mock drafts. In all likelihood, I think he's early to mid-second round. But powerful punch, elite stunt processing, nasty run finisher, strong anchor, quick pre-snap reads, advanced hand usage, explosive off-snap, solid leverage. Really similar to Will Campbell. Like, this is Will Campbell with even shorter arms, right? Fundamentally sound, high football IQ. His stats were incredible, by the way. I know this is University of West Virginia, so it's not exactly the best college football competition, but it's still elite Division I level competition. Didn't allow a single sack the last 3 seasons. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. Has a 97% pass protection rating according to Draft Buzz. Fits the scheme that I think Josh McDaniels wants to implement or re-implement. Power run, I think they're going to move away from the wide zone, stretch run stuff. Doesn't mean the Patriots aren't going to do some inside zone. Maybe they'll mix in some wide zone from time to time just because that's the way the NFL is moving. But I think McDaniels is going to want to go back to the power run. Milum is a good blocker in that type of scheme, a good pass blocker. How is it going to translate, though, to the NFL with the shorter arms? We'll have to see. Probably the best stats of any tackle in this draft. Wyatt Milum, University of West Virginia. It's just the size and the arm length is a bit of an issue, but this is one of those scenarios where you could draft him. Washington Commanders did this last year. You draft him, he's your starting left tackle for a year, and then you kick him over to left guard and say, all right, now we have a really good left guard, kind of like we did with Onwenu, right tackle to right guard, and then we'll address left tackle in another year, but he's a solid bridge for a year. That's a lot of pressure to put on a rookie, but it worked out for the Washington Commanders this past year, and then they went out, got Laramie Tunsil to fill the left tackle spot. That's an option here, and that may ultimately be what the Patriots have to do if they're not able to get a true starting left tackle in, say, the first round, right? They may have to just get a guy who is good enough, that's going to be a good enough upgrade from Vidarian Lowe, and then you kick him over to left guard. And then you got another year to figure out left tackle, which we've been talking about for, 6, 7, 8 years now. So, I really like Wyatt Milum. I wouldn't be upset. The short arms are an issue, but, man, those stats are really impressive. He's also durable, too. Looks like he started every game each of the last 3 seasons. And again, 0 sacks allowed. Very impressive. A guy who I think is similar in comparison is Gray Zable. Offensive tackle, North Dakota State. He's kind of a multi-role offensive lineman. He did play a little bit of left guard in college. Basically identical size, 6'6", 312 pounds, 32-inch arms, so even shorter than Wyatt Milum, but basically an identical frame, both of those two players. Weaknesses, short arms, narrow pass sets, erratic hands under pressure, plays high at times, may struggle with NFL edge speed, but similar strengths, exceptional leverage, combo blocking timing, pass protection tenacity, elite processing, vice grip hands, finishing instincts, versatile, mobile pulling. He's going to go around the same time as Wyatt Milum. Very good fit for Josh McDaniels' offense, maybe not quite as much, however, as Wyatt Milum. He did have a 100% pass blocking grade, according to Draft Buzz, but his run blocking skills are a better fit for a zone scheme. That doesn't mean he can't be an effective offensive lineman in a power run scheme like I think Josh McDaniels is going to run, but he's probably a better fit for these more modern West Coast NFL offenses. So I'd probably give Wyatt Milum the edge over Gray Zable, but both of these guys could be going late first round. I think that might be a reach, but early second, mid-second round, a high likelihood there. Allowed 1 sack his senior year, so good player. Maybe lesser competition, North Dakota State, relative to Wyatt Milum at West Virginia, but North Dakota State is a exceptional lower-tier college football program, so who knows? We'll see what happens. These are second-round picks, both of these guys, Wyatt Milum and Gray Zable, but another guy who I think could go ahead of those guys potentially, late first round, early second round. I think he's probably early second round. Josh Conerly Jr. This is a true left tackle versus Gray Zable, who I just talked about, or Wyatt Milum, who probably could be better fits at left guard later in their careers. But Josh Conerly Jr. I think is a better fit. 6'5", 311 pounds, so not the size you're looking for, but does have 33.5-inch arms. So above the threshold there. Weaknesses really have to do with his size. He overextends versus hesitation moves. Average play strength just because of his size. Run blocking could be a bit more polished, and his hands are inconsistent. But decent pass protector, had a 90% rating on Draft Buzz. Natural need bender, second level range, quick processor, leverage mastery, fluid mover, strong recovery, and clean footwork. So he can get a little bit lazy sometimes with his fundamentals when he has to overcompensate for his size, but another fundamentally sound tackle. His pass protection, going to be good for Drake May. He might be a better fit for a wide zone scheme. maybe similar to what I just said about Gray Zable, but I don't think there would be much of an issue with him being in a power run scheme. I think he's a good fit either way, and more of a true left tackle than the last two players that I just mentioned. 0 sacks, 9 pressures in 2024, first team All-American. Just 1 sack the year before as a sophomore, was all Pac-12 that year. And as a freshman, he gave up 0 sacks, only played in 6 games there. So, you know, I wouldn't read too much into that figure, but 1 sack allowed in his last 2 seasons at the University of Oregon against that elite competition that they consistently go against. Josh Conerly Jr. in the Patriot beat writers, the Taylor Kyles, the Alex Barths of the world, their mock drafts, I've seen Josh Conerly Jr.'s name thrown around a lot, particularly at their first pick in the second round. I've also seen his name thrown around as a player you trade back up into the first round to take. So I think he probably is a late first rounder at this point. In fact, he may leapfrog Josh Simmons and even Kelvin Banks Jr. just because, for whatever reason, as I said at the top of the podcast, his draft stock seems to be falling. I don't know why. It just seems to be falling slowly over the last 3 months. But enough about him. Next on the list is Arante Ursery, offensive left tackle from the University of Minnesota. Bigger than the last few guys I mentioned. 6'6", 331 pounds. Arm length is a little bit of an issue for a guy that size, but he is above just slightly 33 inches. His weaknesses: upright pass sets, late punch timing, stiff redirecting, over-aggressive run blocking, and he struggles at times with complex blitzes. However, he is a powerful run blocker, a good fit for a power scheme, like we talked about. Exceptional length, natural anchor, quick processor, explosive snap, good combo timing, nasty finisher, and he's also been very durable. Seems to have started every game each of the last 3 seasons in college at Minnesota. I think he's a good fit for the power run game. As I said, I think his pass protection needs a little bit of refinement. So it kind of depends on what Mike Vrabel wants to do. If this is the if this is the Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry's your running back, and you just want to be a power run, shove it down your throat type team, then yeah, Ursery's a good pick there. If your priority is buying Drake May more time, he's maybe not as good of a pick as, say, Josh Conerly Jr. But, you know, allowed 1 sack each of the last 2 seasons at a very good college program. Certainly has the size, and, you know, with a little bit of fundamentally sound coaching, hopefully Dante Scarnecchia is around as a consultant, as we've heard rumored. You know, he could be one of the better left tackles in this draft. So this is another name that I've seen thrown around, mostly not as a trade back into the first round option, but more as an early second round option where the Patriots stick and pick. Ursery would probably be available there. He's probably projected to go somewhere between 45 and 46, so mid-second round, could fall even to the early third round, but because he does seem to be a true left tackle, I think he'll probably go earlier just because there's a lot of demand across the NFL for true left tackles. Next up, this is a long list, so this is going to be a longer podcast. Donovan Jackson, a multi-role offensive lineman for Ohio State University. Wouldn't have said multi-role offensive lineman 5-6 months ago, because he was the starting left guard for the national champion Buckeyes up until Josh Simmons got hurt, and then he got kicked over to left tackle and did a pretty damn good job, and now he's being considered as a potential starting left tackle in the NFL. So Donovan Jackson's a great story. His draft projection is all over the place, from early second round to 5th round. Could go anywhere. I think he's probably a late second rounder. Going to go probably in the 55 to 80 range. 6'4", 315 pounds, so a little bit undersized, but 33.5-inch arms. He plays tall in pass protection, so that's one of his weaknesses for his height. Wide hands, stiff redirecting, over aggressive in space, late off of combos, but Guy has an imposing frame for his size, especially with his arm length being above average for a 6'4" tackle. Strong anchor, nasty finisher, elite IQ, grip strength, versatile, and a powerful punch. Watch it on tape. Definitely a powerful punch. Big reason why Ohio State was able to win the national championship this year. I think he's an excellent fit for the power run and what Josh McDaniels is trying to do. The versatility is nice. Could be a bridge left tackle that you kick back over to left guard if you take care of it a year later. A lot of people think he's a guard, but not a bad backup option at left tackle and not a bad bridge year if the Patriots look at the rest of the draft and they say, I think this is our best bet at left tackle, and then we'll figure it out again next year, as I suggested. So, allowed 0 sacks, first team, all Big Ten this year, being with the split roles, half the time at left guard, half the time at left tackle, 927 snaps. Had 0 sacks given up at left tackle the year before, was also first team, all Big Ten. This guy has a really high ceiling and hasn't spent a lot of time at left tackle, so maybe that just helps his draft stock. I don't know. Donovan Jackson is a real wild card and a guy that you may want to consider, especially since he kind of fit into Josh Simmons' role seamlessly. Maybe he can fit into an NFL left tackle role seamlessly. We'll wait and see. So how many more names do I have left? I still have 3 more names. The next one I think is the most exciting, though, and that is Aussie Trapilo out of Boston College. Very versatile offensive lineman, can play all over the field. Most notably, he's the son of the late Steve Trapilo, who was an offensive tackle for the New England Patriots very briefly in 1993, spent 6 years with the New Orleans Saints before that. New England raised kid. His dad, Steve, I think was from New Hampshire. Aussie went to Boston College High School and then went to college at Boston College. Huge guy, 6'8", a little skinny, 316 pounds for a 6'8" guy. 33-inch arms, so could be longer. Kind of an unusual frame, right? But he is a guy who can be moved over all over the place and could potentially be your long-term starting left tackle. Mike Vrabel, should be noted, was in attendance at BC's Pro Day on Monday. He was the only NFL head coach there. And we know he has a connection with BC's head coach, former Patriots offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien. O'Brien was interviewed at Pro Day talking about Aussie Trapilo, and he said, Aussie is the type of guy who's just the same guy every day, never misses practice, very tough, very talented, very smart. He's got a master's degree from Boston College. He'd be excellent in the locker room. He'll do whatever the coach asks him to do. He'll play right tackle. He'll play left tackle. He'll play guard if you ask him. He'll do whatever you ask him to do. He always puts the team first, and I think that's some of the things that Mike's probably looking for. I'm not telling Mike who to draft, but I don't think he can go wrong with Aussie Trapilo. So Aussie is, I saw a bunch of Boston sports news articles saying, is he the guy the Patriots will draft early in the second round? I do think his draft stock is improving, but I think at the earliest he's probably going in the third round. So maybe in the 70 to 100 range. So it probably would be a bit of a reach in the second round. I think you could see him as a sort of a developmental tackle that you could also plug in and play right away, understanding he's got a much higher ceiling just because he is a very unique player. Being 6'8" and a little undersized in terms of weight and arms has some issues. Inconsistent pad level, late to the second level, oversets versus speed. He's a little too over aggressive in pass protection, and he has hand placement issues in the run game. But we know he's big. There's a lot you can do with a big guy. Trent Brown was 6'8", certainly weighed a lot more than Aussie Trapilo, but I'll take the undersized guy who can put on muscle versus Trent Brown, who needs to probably lose a little bit there. So massive frame, patient pass sets, vice grip hands, high football IQ, very high football IQ from what I hear, refined kick slide, strong anchor, run game movement, and a nasty finisher. This just has Mike Vrabel written all over it. Like I said, probably a reach in the second round. Might even be a reach early in the third round. But if the Patriots identify him to be one of the better tackles in this draft, I wouldn't be shocked if they took him in the 3rd round. He slips to the 4th round, I think they'll definitely take him. Great stats, fairly durable, 13 starts this past year, 849 snaps, just gave up 1 sack, first team All-ACC, gave up 0 sacks the year before in 12 starts at the right tackle position. He was primarily a right tackle at BC, but he's been playing all over the place. So this is not a Caden Wallace thing where you got to make him relearn what he did on the right side and the left side. I think you could put him on the left side, and you're really not going to skip a beat there. Aussie Trapilo is a guy who I think there is a very high likelihood the Patriots end up drafting. Now, do they end up drafting him as a depth piece? That might be a higher likelihood, and they take one of the other players earlier on. So, like, he slips to the 4th round, you draft him, and then you take your true left tackle in the 2nd round. That's another option. But this is a guy to keep an eye on, and a guy I think the Patriots are really eyeing, especially with the New England and the Boston connection and his late father's connection. Just seems like a good all-around guy, too. Smart guy. You know, as Bill O'Brien said, never missed a practice, does whatever you ask of him. That's what Mike Vrabel is looking for in terms of a culture fit. Next up, we have Cameron Williams, offensive tackle, University of Texas, played right tackle at Texas because Kelvin Banks was on the left side. So similar story to Caden Wallace last year. The University of Washington, their left tackle was drafted ahead of him. Wallace probably would have been a left tackle at most schools, but was a right because of his situation. Cameron Williams at University of Texas in a very similar situation. 6'6", 317 pounds, 34.5-inch arms. So got some length there. Expected to go probably sometime late in the 2nd round, early in the 3rd round. Weaknesses, raw kick slide, erratic hands. Definitely bends his waist a lot. Limited recovery, inconsistent run leverage. But the strengths are very solid. Powerful punch, pancake ability, run game mover, mobile pulling, uses his frame well. His IQ is improving, and he's got a mean streak. So Mike Vrabel fit there. But this is another scenario where you're taking a right tackle and you're moving them all the way to the left side. Did give up 2 sacks this past year. Now, usually the right tackle gives up more sacks than the left tackle, so that's still a pretty good number. Many believe he could, shift to left tackle. I think a lot of teams are assessing him as a future NFL left tackle. Just because of the Kelvin Banks situation there and the fact that he would have played that position otherwise. I think he would be more of a seamless fit there than what the Patriots tried to do with Caden Wallace last year. I don't want to repeat the same thing all over again. You know, maybe if you take Armin Membu at 4th overall, then you could convince me he can move to the left side just because of how athletic and how he is probably the best overall tackle in this draft. But trying to do that with Cameron Williams, that might be a little bit more challenging, but not a terrible option if the Patriots find themselves in the 3rd round, still without a starting left tackle, and some of these other guys aren't available. But let's say it's between Trapilo and Cameron Williams. Most NFL teams would probably take Cameron Williams, but just with all the Patriot connections, they would probably take Trapilo. But he is someone that you should keep an eye on, and who knows? Maybe they'll try to move him over the left tackle. Last but not least, Charles Grant, left tackle, William and Mary. Now, this feels like a Belichick pick, William and Mary. If Mike Vrabel takes a left tackle from William and Mary, we'll know really nothing has changed in New England. It's just a younger GM/head coach. But I actually really like this guy, and I really hope the Patriots draft him. I'm not just saying that. Because he does kind of fit the Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick mold. This guy's really underrated, and the only reason he's not considered an early round pick, I mean, he could go in the 3rd round potentially, but the only reason he's not considered a 1st or 2nd round pick is because he went to William and Mary. Didn't have great competition there. But he is, in my opinion, the FCS sleeper of this draft. Light frame, however, 6'5", 311 pounds, but has the longest arms of any player on this list. 34-inch and 3/4 length arms. So kind of an unusual frame there. Because of it, he has jerky footwork, anchor concerns, wide hands, and of course there is the concern of him jumping from FCF's competition to being a starting NFL left tackle on the weak Patriots offensive line. That is a bit of a leap, but the strengths, I think, there's trade-offs here, right? But I think the strengths overcompensate for that. Lateral quickness, disciplined leverage, zone blocking mastery, nasty temperament, strong recovery, long play mastery. That's important when plays break down with Drake May, as we saw last year. Elite processing speed, grip strength. I think this guy's a really good fit. Draft Buzz gave him a 98% pass protection rating. I think he is probably a better fit for a wide zone scheme, but that doesn't mean he can't be in a power run scheme with Josh McDaniels. You don't have to worry about him switching positions or anything. Started 14 games this past year, consensus All-American, gave up just 1 sack, 0 sacks as a junior, 1 sack as a sophomore, so 2 sacks out of his last 3 years in college. Was a rotational role as a freshman. This guy is someone you should keep an eye on. 3rd round, 4th round, could slip to the 5th round because of the William and Mary situation. But I know this is one of those picks where Michael Felger is going to go on the air and say, what the hell are the Patriots doing? But I'm putting his name out there right now. Charles Grant. If the Patriots draft him, people are going to say, Cole Strange, I've never heard of this guy. Putting it out there right now. Keep an eye on him. I hope the Patriots will consider him. I think he would be an excellent fit if he can make the leap in terms of the competition at the NFL level. So I just went through, 9-10 different players Patriots could draft. I think in all likelihood they are going to draft one of these guys. Real chance they also draft 2 of them just to have depth at the tackle position. Patriots could use all the depth in the world at both left tackle and right tackle. My recommendations, the top tier guys that you should look at, probably Kelvin Banks, really like him. Josh Connerly, I know I spoke a little ill of him, but he still probably should be in that top tier consideration. Josh Simmons should be in there as well. Maybe not so much top tier, but highest ceiling. Like I said, Charles Grant, I think I put in some of the higher ceilings of the players on this list. Same with Aussie Trapilo. Those are the guys I really hope they draft. Banks, Connerly, Simmons, Grant, and Trapilo. But doesn't mean you don't keep an eye out on Milum, Ursery, Williams. They're more developmental pieces. And Zable and Jackson perhaps might end up being NFL guards when all is said and done. But if you think he can be a good bridge at tackle for a year and then you kick him over to left guard, not a bad option there. But let me know what you think in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube. Who do you think the Patriots should draft at tackle, assuming they don't take a tackle at 4th overall? So don't talk about Will Campbell. Don't talk about Armin Membu, the players I talked about. Or if there's someone I didn't mention, let me know in the comments below. Who do you think the Patriots should take and in what round? 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round, trading back into the 1st round. Curious to hear from you. And if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, hit that notification bell, or subscribe if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. We'll be back very soon with more New England Patriots coverage.
No tackle is for now, what's the plan? Gotta find someone who can take a stand. May's the future, can't let it fall. A big time wall, a beast up tall. Kelvin Banks underrated at me. Josh Simmons if his knee stays clean. Aussie Trapilo, a hometown guy. Who's gonna block? Who's gonna stand? Keep May clean with the heavy hand. Find that gem, don't wait too late. Or May's 2nd year might end in pain. Charles Grant, small school name. William and Mary, but got that game. Big strong hands, quick off the snap. Don't sleep on the kid, he might be the tag. attention, raise your voice.